I'm Darcy Byrne. I'm the Mayor of the Inner West. I begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land and by paying respect to their elders, both past and present. Do we have any apologies or requests for remote attendance tonight? Is Councillor Rosidi here? Got an apology from Councillor Rosidi. Are there any other apologies? No. The Deputy Mayor will move that be accepted, seconded by Councillor Clay. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. The notice of webcasting, just for the benefit of all of the citizens in the gallery tonight, we let you know that the proceedings are broadcast live onto YouTube and then recorded there for posterity, as is required by the Local Government Act. And that means that the comments that you make are in the public domain and can have legal ramifications. Statement of ethical obligations. I'll now read to you what I actually do believe to be the longest sentence in the history of the English language. Statement of ethical obligations. The Mayor and Councillors are bound by the oath or affirmation of office made at the start of the council term to undertake their civic duties in the best interests of the people of the Inner West Council and to faithfully and impartially carry out the functions, powers, authorities and discretions vested in them under the Local Government Act or any other act to the best of their skill and judgment. It is also a requirement that the Mayor and Councillors disclose conflicts of interest in relation to items listed for consideration on the agenda or which are considered at this meeting in accordance with the Council's Code of Conduct and Code of Meeting Practice. I'll move on to disclosures of interest. Are there any disclosures tonight? Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. I declare a non-significant non-pecuniary interest in item 7, Lewisham Town Centre upgrade, and item 13, pathway to a safer Cooks River, as I work in the Office of the Minister for Transport. In that capacity, I have been directly engaged in work around station upgrades. Out of an abundance of caution and to avoid any perception of risk or risk of conflict, I will remove myself from discussion and voting on those items. I also declare a non-significant non-pecuniary interest in item 8, local traffic committee meeting, as I work in the Office of the Minister for Transport, who in her capacity as the member for Summer Hill has a representative on the local traffic committee. I will remain in the meeting during discussion and voting, as the vote of the state member is exercised through a representative.
Thanks very much, Councillor Howard. Any further? Yes, Councillor Macri.
Sorry, Chair, I just got a text from Councillor Rosidi. She's not feeling well. She won't be.
I think we've already accepted that apology. Any further disclosures? Yes?
Thanks, Chair. I declare a significant and non-pecuniary interest in item 11, update on planning proposal for additional special entertainment precincts, as Factory Theatre is located at 105 Victoria Road, Marrickville, and is encompassed in this report. I have extended family members in the executive of Century Venues, the corporate entity that owns Factory Theatre, and decisions as a result on this may be a benefit. These family members are outside of the related persons list, but their connection is known to me, and I'll remove myself from discussion and voting on the item.
Okay, thank you. That's very clear. Any further disclosures? Yes, Councillor Barlow.
Sorry. A non-pecuniary interest in item 8, local traffic committee meeting, as I work in the office of Kobe Shetty MP, who in her capacity as a member of Balmain has a representative on the traffic committee. I will remain in the meeting during discussion and voting, as her vote is exercised through a representative.
Okay, any further disclosures? If not...
Mr Mayor?
Yes.
Can I just draw your attention to item 28?
Yes? Oh, okay. Thank you very much for that. I wish to make just seek the advice of council officers about item 28, which is a crossing at Allen Street and Leichhardt, which is within a few hundred metres of a property in which I own half of the value. And so I'm just wanting to seek advice about whether that constitutes a conflict or not. Is it possible for me to get that advice and then to subsequently make a declaration based on the advice if needed, or do I need to wait for that now?
We can go back to that with a procedural motion to revisit the conflict declaration at the point in time, and we'll just have a check.
Thank you for that. So I'll come back to that matter, but can I get a mover of the motion to accept those disclosures? Moved by Councillor Atkins, seconded by Councillor Tastan. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried unanimously. That brings us to our moment of quiet contemplation. Could I please ask everybody to join me in one? Thank you for that. We'll move on to the confirmation of the minutes of the 22nd of October, the ordinary council meeting held. Is there any clarification or correction to those minutes? If not, will someone move their adoption? Moved by Councillor Scott, seconded by Councillor Carlisle. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Okay, we'll move on to the public forum, for which we have a number of items for which there are speakers. What I'm going to do is just run through the list of items which have speakers registered for them. So if you're here for an item, you don't hear it read out now, you need to come and let us know because it means something's gone wrong with your registration. So the first item is item 5, Camperdown Memorial Rest Park. Item 7, Lewisham Town Centre Upgrade. Item 8, Local Traffic Committee Meeting, 21 October. Item 20, Notice of Motion Parking Traffic Plan for Henson Park Events. Item 21, Notice of Motion WestConnex Dive Site reaffirming the need for public housing on public land. Item 29, Notice of Motion expanding jazz in the park. That's it. So if there's nothing that's gone wrong, we'll go first to item 5. Now, we have for item 5, 5 people who've registered to speak against. Only one of them is in person. Our code of meeting practice allows for 3 speakers for and 3 speakers against, but normally if people are in person, we ask them to just converse outside and see if they can agree on the main points, but that's difficult to do online. Thank you to Tom Patterson, who is one of those speakers who's indicated that he does not need to speak, which means we have 4 against and 2 in support. And I propose that we hear from all 4 of the speakers against, but I will ask them to stick to new points that have not already been raised by previous speakers. So in that case, the first speaker is Amy Gray of Newtown. Amy, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. I'll kick it off. Good evening. I'm here to speak to you as a resident of Australia Street in Newtown. I will address why Council should consider the Comedor deck proposal as part of the broader plan of management rather than as a standalone proposal. If Council instead considers the deck on its merits, it should require commercial operations in the park to close by 2 p.m. First, the Comedor deck should be considered as part of the plan of management because the proposal and the plan aim to answer the exact same question. That is, how should the land that makes up the park be used? To determine the proposal in isolation would inappropriately preempt consideration of that question through the broader plan of management and do a disservice to community members whose comments on the broader plan of management are relevant to this proposal. In a meeting I attended in late August, an officer of the council assured me that the proposal would not be decided or considered other than as part of the plan before the plan of management was proposed. Public consultation on the proposal was also solicited and obtained in connection with the plan of management. Secondly, council should not determine the proposal because there has been no opportunity for community comment on the current proposal. As I understand it, the restaurant has revised the proposal to remove the tables and chairs from the deck, but the exact size and location of the new proposal have not been disclosed or subject to public comment, which could be remedied through the plan of management process. Council is wrong to conclude that removal of tables and chairs has successfully addressed community concerns regarding the proposal's negative impact on the use and enjoyment of this currently green space by children and other members of the community for recreation and support. A deck with people standing on it is not all that different to a deck with people sitting on it. It still takes up space in the park and means children can't play or enjoy sport or recreation in or around that area. Council also relies on the fact that there are cafes operating in other Inner West parks as a basis to dismiss the over 70% opposition to this proposal at this location in this park. That fails to acknowledge a number of key distinctions between this proposal and those other commercial enterprises. Notably, this restaurant sits smack dab in the middle of a row of residential properties, one of them being very close to mine. Also, unlike those examples, the space where the deck would go would necessarily remove from public use and enjoyment an area that is currently regularly known for use by children's play, my own children. As Council's report notes, community feedback encouraged limited hours of operation for any approved deck, given the deck's impact on park users and local residents. Indeed, and as Council is well aware, in the months since it opened, the restaurant has been nothing but a nuisance to local residents in a number of respects. Residents are rightly concerned that any expansion of the restaurant's operations will be similarly problematic. In those circumstances, Council should not grant expansive approval for operating hours beyond those at any cafe in any other park in the Inner West. It baffles me that you are even considering such a proposal. That the LEC allowed Council to grant such expansive proposal does not mean that it should on these facts, or that the restaurant should be trusted to choose appropriate hours of operation within those expansive hours. Council should consider what is appropriate in the circumstances of this case, given the strong opposition to this proposal and the restaurant's poor compliance record. It should limit the hours that the deck can operate. If Council is minded to approve the deck, it should require that all commercial operations in the park close by 2 p.m.
Amy, I'll ask you to conclude your remarks.
Would allow the restaurant to sell coffee and leave a portion of the day for the public to use and enjoy the rest of the park. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Amy. And sorry, forgive me, I should have spoken to this at the start. Our code of meeting practice allows for speakers to speak for 3 minutes from the public gallery. After 2.5 minutes, you'll hear that bell, and then the bell again at the end of the 3 minutes. So thank you very much for sticking to time. Next speaker is Charles Bailey of Leichhardt.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Charles Bailey. I'm standing in for Walter Shellshire, who's the owner of the premises and the business at 182 Australia Street, Newtown. Mr. Shellshire is unavoidably interstate and unable to attend by Zoom. So I'm just going to talk about the DA history, 6 years worth of public notice re-counter servery. So the DA history, the DA process for this business was commenced in 2018. Land and Environment Court orders by consent were granted in 2021. Consent was for food and beverage operation with a servery to the park. A modification was also approved by the Inner West Council in 2022. A hire agreement was entered into on the 4th of July 2024. So with respect to putting local residents on notice, councillors should be aware that since 2018, local residents have been put on notice of the counter servery and the business in general. This notice has been via the normal DA notification processes at 3 stages, and that being the original DA, the LEC application, and the modification of DA. Also, Mr. Shellshire caused his neighbours at 186 Australia Street to be put on notice of the impending business enterprise prior to their purchasing the property. Specifically, Mr. Shellshire advised that the then vendor's real estate agent of the court orders, and it is his understanding from speaking recently with those agents, that the details of the orders were annexed to the contract of sale for the purchase of that property. So to say that local residents were not put on notice is simply not true. So turning now to the specifics of the temporary platform itself, the business has incurred significant capital expenditure of over $200,000, getting to the point of operational readiness. All fees and insurances were prepaid. As a result of certain neighbours intervening, the business has weathered significant business interruption and a loss of income. This equates to approximately 5 months loss of income so far. This loss of income has been exacerbated by the very restricted trading hours. The restaurant side of the business operates from under 6 p.m. base hours, 7 days a week, trial hours Thursday to Saturday until 9:30 p.m. last orders. So finally, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to provide you with a background on the business contribution to the local community, neighbourhood and amenity. The venture is a significant addition to the local neighbourhood, providing a unique venue for the benefit of the broader community and locals. This effort was recognised and saluted last night, actually, when it was awarded a hat straight off the bat by the Sydney Morning Herald Good Food Guide. Two weeks ago, the venue was also awarded a commendation by the National Eat Drink Design Awards, which is the highest award for a Sydney restaurant. This is not a fly-by-nature venture, rather a bona fide addition to the local amenity, envisaged and brought to life by a local resident. It employs 20+ staff, 12 of which are local to the Inner West. It contracts with 15 suppliers, almost half of which are local to the Inner West. It's reasonable to expect that the same high level of hospitality will be replicated in the offering to the park. Lastly, the business has cooperated fully with the Inner West Council's requests and requirements. The business has not taken...
I'll ask you to conclude your remarks.
Yes, the business has not taken a legal approach to this issue, rather has sought a mediated solution. Thank you for your time.
Thanks very much, Charles. Our next speaker is Jason Gray of Newtown, who's online. Jason, are you there?
I am. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Good evening. I'll be making 4 main points against the Comedor proposal in my notes tonight. First, a decision should not be made because councillors do not have the details of the updated proposal, particularly plans, to permit adequate consideration of the matter. Council staff have rather inexplicably written in support of the updated proposal without publicly disclosing what they know or without knowing what it is. The second point I make is that putting aside the more than 70% community objections to this proposal, council staff have acted as though they are determined for a coffee and juice service to be provided and only provided by this particular vendor. If council's of the view that coffee and juice facilities are truly a necessary park amenity, it should conduct a public tender for something like a mobile coffee cart in the park, as it has done in other inner west parks, ensuring probity, value for money, and minimising the impact on our parkland. The next point I'd make is that less than 30% of comments received by council during the consultation process supported the idea of coffee and juice facilities in the park. Notably, almost all of those supportive comments are generic and not specific to Comedor at all, simply stating it will be good to get a coffee in the park. This means any public demand can be met by such a service being located anywhere in the park and provided by any coffee vendor. A compromise here would involve council conducting the public tender I've described with an area of operation for their coffee cart focused around the dog park and close to other park amenities like the new amenities and toilet block, and away from the row of residential houses and terraces directly impacted by Comedor. This would be a win-win for councillors that aligns with public feedback. And finally, if a vote proceeds tonight, in spite of the points I've made, Comedor's proposed servery window operating hours must be reduced. As I've said, over 70% of feedback was against this proposal, but council staff not only write in favour of it, they've inexplicably determined to extend Comedor's hours, including from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. for half the week and 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. the other part of the week for the service of coffee and juice. No other Inner West Park cafe has such expansive hours. Most operate to 2 p.m. or 3 p.m. at the latest. Council staff recommend this proposal based on what they say is the sameness of every single commercialisation of a park in the Inner West. That is plainly wrong. Every location is different and it is unique. Comedor sits in a row of residential terrace houses, as I've said, unlike any other Inner West Park cafe or restaurant. Further, one of the main complaints about the Comedor proposal has been that this part of the park is already used for kids' parties and sport, water gun fights, seniors tai chi, and yet council writes in favour of expanding its operating hours, handing over part of our park for an even longer part of the day. So in summary, tonight's proposal sidesteps due process, lacks transparency, seems rushed, and disregards entirely community concerns. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Jason. Our next speaker is Patrick May of Newtown, who's also online. Patrick, are you there?
I am, thank you. Thanks for your time. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm a Newtown resident. I'm a frequent user of the park, and I'm a friend of some residents that live near to the property in question. I'm concerned more around the setting of a general precedent with this matter and the potential decision. Certainly concerned about the use of public space, but my further two concerns have been partially raised tonight. Firstly, the precedents cited in the report. I'm concerned that they're not accurate. Those sites that are cited in the report don't appear to share walls or be close to residences, whereas obviously this facility abuts residences and is on the same street as other houses. In fact, most of those facilities cited in the report seem to be either purpose-built facilities or even part of a purpose-built aquatic centre. I'm concerned that therefore approving this application would set a precedent for similar operations in residential areas elsewhere, and not a good one, in my view. And expanding on the remarks regarding the opening hours, similarly, it is concerning that so the papers are citing the residents' objections to the acoustic impact, and the paper states that they've been addressed by modifications to the proposal, but the proposal appears to have been modified by extending opening hours to a 7 a.m. starting time, assuming a cafe would open even earlier to facilitate serving from 7. That is not, frankly, an activity that I would want near to my residents, but we should also object to it because it would be unreasonable for any home or to be near any home. And it's particularly notable that the hours are extending to 8 p.m. at the latest. far later than it would seem for coffee and juice and cafe style activities. So again, I'd be concerned about that setting a precedent for the area. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Patrick. Our next speaker is Pip Hinman from Newtown, who is here in person.
Thanks, councillors. I'd just like to acknowledge we're here on Gadigal Wangal land and sovereignty was never ceded. I'm speaking against the lease agreement with Comedor on 3 main grounds. 1, there was no community consultation before the lease agreement was made. 2, the subsequent consultation was a sham. And 3, leasing private space in a public park helps a private owner but not public amenity. Camperdown Memorial Rest Park is a rare space, precious green space in a densely populated area. The lease agreement with Comedor should not have been made in the first place, and I say it's been done without community consultation, although the Sydney Morning Herald in August talked up being able to sit in deck chairs in Camperdown Memorial Park come daylight savings. So, I mean, they knew, but residents didn't. Once it became public that council had signed a lease with Comedor, and this was before the election, residents at a ward meeting wanted answers to many questions. Well, we didn't get many answers, but we were told that things were commercial in confidence. However, council did undertake to delay the process to undertake community consultation, and some 2,000 letters were reportedly dropped to households within 150 metres of the park to notify them of that community consultation. However, only 6 people went, all of whom opposed the lease deal. Council officers gave them the impression at that time that the lease arrangement would not go through. However, now the lease is back on the table. Given that most residents oppose the lease in the feedback that council has obtained, the lease really shouldn't go ahead. I think we really got to say you've got to listen to the community and just stop, not listen to the community and go ahead. The commercial in confidence excuse should also be called out. The community has a right to know what is going on with our park. In 2001, Marrickville Council undertook a management and landscape report on Campo Park, known as Community Land under the Local Government Act. It took more than a year for that consultation to go through all the various elements. It was extensive. Among other things, it said that in keeping with community values, future uses of the park must be non-commercial. Why is the Inner West Council officers trying to introduce commerce into this park? It's not because there's a lack of food and beverage amenities nearby. Labor didn't take its views on this lease on the park to the elections, I dare say because it knew how unpopular it actually is. The Local Government Act, which covers council's management of parks, states use of community land pending adoption of plan management under that section. Pending the adoption of a plan of management for community land, the nature and use of the land must not be changed. As a new management plan is being worked on, the question of a private lease arrangement should be part of that consultation. I'll just finish here. It's not in the public interest for this lease to be given out in this rushed and backdoor manner. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Ms. Hinman. Our last speaker on this item is Philip Bull of Marrickville, who is also here in person.
Thank you, councillors, and congratulations on the new council. I'm the project's planner. I submitted the original DA on behalf of the owner, Walt, 6 years ago, so I'm here to answer questions. I've listened to the submissions. There's a common theme that comes out from the submissions that there's been no consultation. There was consultation on the original DA. We actually had discussions with the park manager of the time. They were very supportive of a use like this in the park. If you actually go to the original report on the on that proposal, there was no issue with the canteen. It was supported, it was advertised. The issue with the appeal was not to do with the canteen, it was to do with the land use and I suppose an existing use rights issue. So it was advertised originally, there was no concern. We actually got support from the then parks manager and there was talk about it being introduced into the plan of management. He wanted this use because there was crime and issues in the park, I suppose. There's an issue about it being a green space. If you look at this space, it's not green. There was an old park bench there. It's a dirt space. It's a poorly used part of the park. There's an issue of lack of detail being presented tonight. What the owners agreed to is a reduction in size of this space. So you have the detail, it's just going to be a lot smaller and there's no chairs. There's the issue of extension of hours. We're not seeking extensions of hours, it's approved. There is a an approval for the hours. What we put in is an activity application to formally lease the space. And this is where this issue of, I suppose, privatisation comes up. No one's privatising a space here. This is land that is owned by the community. We are leasing it. If it becomes a problem, the council takes the land back. And the deck that is going on is as lightweight as you can get. It's basically a sort of, lightweight timber deck, or I think it's a composite material sitting on pads. It can be removed. There will be no harm to the park. It is an amenity. Civilised societies have cafes in parks. It's a common thing. It's not unusual. It will not be the death of this park. There was issues of precedence. As the report pointed out, it's common to have a cafe or a use like this in the park. There was issue raised again of no consultation. Again, the DA was consulted. The section 4.5 modification went to consultation. This whole issue arose because we had a building permit. That my client was granted an actual permit to build this deck based on the agreement that commercial agreement he signed with the council, and part of that permit was we had to notify all the neighbours. We did that. I wrote the letter. That's why we're here. We're not here because we didn't consult. We're here because we did. And this all happened years ago. And this is the issue, I think, that people have forgotten there was an approval. There's a legal right to be there. My client wants to, I suppose, deal with this issue. He wants to reduce the size of it. He wants to manage responsibly. There's issues with the premises that have come up, and I really will end on this.
Thank you.
It's a new premises. There have been issues. We fully take ownership of the issues with the plant. Basically, what has happened is the builder has put the plant in, I suppose, unskilled with the plant. It had to be fine-tuned. It's been turned down.
Thank you, Mr. Paul. We need to conclude there. Thank you.
Okay, I'll leave it with you. But
appreciate your time.
The owner is here to basically deal with these issues, but they do have a valid agreement and approval for the use.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much.
Our next item is item 7, Lewisham Town Centre upgrade, and our first speaker is Fiona Campbell of Lewisham, who is here in person.
Good evening, councillors. Congratulations on your commitment to serving the community. I'm Fiona Campbell. I'm from Lewisham Better Streets, and we just wanted to thank council for this proposal to engage the community on a master plan for Lewisham Town Centre upgrade, and particularly for the inclusion of a budget for construction works in the next budget or before, because that's going to allow it to be done at the same time, or some of it, with the station works, which are going to start in early 2026. So it's only just over a year away. So we are so happy to see that planning going on, so that the station works can be intertwined and done in a coordinated way with council. We think it's such a great chance to improve walkability, to create a community social space with greening and art. We think it's going to be a space that will serve our community. We have regular, I don't know if everyone knows this or it's a sort of trade secret, but we have regular Lewisham chess championships, and the footpath is jam-packed with, like, I don't know, about 8 chess tables, games going on at once, and people spilling onto the road. So having a space where we can have those regular chess championships, we have regular poetry readings on the street, but we don't have a space to do that. And there's footpaths, leading to the station are really narrow. It'll enable the forthcoming patisserie, which is being renovated at the moment, to have space for outdoor seating and actually create a bit of community sense as well. It'll mean that all the commuters and the school kids who are currently walking on the road because the footpaths are too narrow for the volumes when a train comes in will have somewhere to walk if the footpaths can be wider. We've found that many of the neighbours that we've spoken to are really excited about this prospect. They have good ideas to contribute to the consultation that council is planning. We believe that all the various key uses can all be accommodated, I'm sure. Business deliveries are important, having a kiss and drop zone, which should be at least as close as the bus stop. And, all of those needs. We could celebrate this really understated town centre of all the town centres in West Council. It's a really understated one. But it was formerly a bustling centre filled with shops. It was formerly the last stop on the train line. The line halted by Long Creek, as it used to be known, on the boundary of the lands of the Gadigal and the Wongal people. Like, it's such a great place. So we're also inspired by the community focal point that the Summerhill Fountain and Plaza creates. We'd love to have a great space for our local neighbourhood activities and to create that social connection. Thank you really very much.
Thank you, Fiona. Appreciate that. Okay, our next speaker is Tamara Winikoff, who is speaking for the item from Lewisham. She is speaking online, and we appear to be stuck in an interminable screensaver. Does that mean? Oh, she's here. Hello. Hello, Tamara. Nice to see you. If you could go, we cannot see you. Yes, but if you go ahead, that would be great. Thank you.
You can hear me, good. Well, thanks for the opportunity to speak in favour of the motion that's been put. Like Fiona, I want to affirm how much excitement there is in the community about the possibilities that are being opened by the fact that Inner West Council has, is on the brink of agreeing to do some work in coordination with Transport for New South Wales. I think you're probably all aware that for a very long time there have been problems with Lewisham Station and the fact that it's not accessible, and the fact that Transport for New South Wales is finally going to be doing that work opens up a really wonderful opportunity. We were particularly thrilled that they, like the neighbours, are thinking about the idea of how to expand the footpath, as Fiona's been describing, to turn it into a kind of community hub and to narrow the traffic so that it only goes one way, and it's in doing so it would stop traffic coming, the sort of rat run that's being used by people to dodge the corner a bit further down. We can see, although the most recent flyer from Transport for New South Wales did do an artist's illustration that looked fairly minimal, we think that in working with the council to give ideas for the master plan, there are some more exciting things that could be expanded on and added to that idea. And in particular, in narrowing the road from Railway Terrace, which is quite busy, down to the first cross street, which is Hobbs Street, if there was a sort of snake shape created, as Fiona was describing, the shop, Dear Patrick, who conducts the chess championships, would have the space to be able to accommodate the excited people clustering around and participating in those events. And then further up on the corner to have space for the patisserie that's being built or being renovated, to be able to have on-street dining and coffee and cakes and all the nice things. I've actually been a very long-term resident in this street, and in fact, I remember the time when it was a really bustling little shopping centre which had a butcher and a chemist. I was just so pleased about the chemist because I had little children. Anyone who has little children knows why a chemist is necessary. And it had, a little grocery shop and a tiny little drapery with a very grey sort of interior with lots of reels of cotton, and it had a real vitality. Unfortunately, over the years, that has diminished and it looks a bit sad, and particularly because of the graffiti. But the fact that there are now artists who've moved into the area, there's a group of young architects just further down the road. We've already talked about the wonderful chess championships and so on. Is bringing a real vitality of potential to the area. And
thank you, Tamara. We have to just wrap up there. I'm sorry. Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. Our next item is item 8, Local Traffic Committee meeting from the 21st of October. And we have one person speaking, David Benham from Newtown, who is speaking against and who is here.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on this issue. I'd like to begin by saying that I have no opposition to the EV charging plan as in principle. It's only the specific space directly out front of my house at number 2 Ella Street, which is, I think, an ill-considered site. A bit of background, my home has been my family for 77 years. We've lived in the street basically just under 100 years, and I know the traffic conditions and the situation in the street reasonably well, being as I've been involved with it for 60-something years. nobody owns an EV on our block. Nobody is likely to buy an EV on our block. At present, we have insufficient parking provision and basically no enforcement of the resident parking plan. As a result, it's an enormous struggle to find a park if you do something audacious like go to the shops. It's just not going to happen. You end up parking 2 blocks away. Also, one of the things that bears upon this is that this single space that is going to be taken up by the dedicated charging port is going to be in addition to losing a further dozen or so or more spaces further down the street because of the expansion of pedestrian crossings. All the people who currently park in those spaces are going to have to park somewhere. I'm not quite sure where, but taking one more further space is not going to help the situation at all. When I attended the traffic management meeting, there was a discussion about the idle charges that were going to be charged against those who overstayed their charging time. I've not found out how likely an actual, how that's going to operate. No idea exactly how much that's going to be, whether it will actually deter people from just parking there. At present, people, due to the lack of parking enforcement, people just park there all day, and then residents cannot park there. There are a number of charging spaces planned for Homewood Street, which is the next block down, and I think those are probably going to be much more easily accommodated by the much wider and much bigger street, and certainly it would probably provide enough charging provision for both streets rather than shoehorning one into a very overused parking area. To me, this seems to be a solution looking for a problem that in itself makes an existing unaddressed problem far worse. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, David. Our next item is item 20, Notice of Motion Parking Traffic Plan for Henson Park Events, and the first speaker is Joanna Andronis of Marrickville. Joanna, are you there? No? She is? We might try Theo while we're waiting. Theo Lucas of Redfern. Theo, are you there?
Hello. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, fantastic. So I'm actually speaking on behalf of my parents. I grew up in Marrickville, in Malakoff Street, and born in Malakoff Street, and then grew up on Sydenham Road. So there's a bit of an issue when there's an event at the moment, no matter when it is, if it's a weekday or a weekend, and it's very difficult to actually get, or you can't get out of your driveways or our garages. And as I sort of wrote to Councillor Macri, is that well, I've actually got a disabled child. So I had a disabled child, so he passed away, but I've got another child now. And my parents help out with picking him up and dropping him off, and we just can't get out of our driveway. So the main concern that we've got, and I support Councillor Macri's motion. The only thing is if we can actually amend that motion to have a no parking sign 7 days a week or all the time across from all our driveways and garages rather than just on the weekends. My mother sent me some photos today, which I forwarded on, and it just shows cars parked there again and you can't even get in and out of your driveway, sort of no matter sort of what time and so forth. So I do support Councillor Macri's motion, just with the amendment to have the no parking signs there 7 days a week or all the time, instead of just the weekends.
Thanks very much for that, Theo. And I think we do now have Joanna. Are you there?
Hello.
G'day, we can hear you.
Okay, just what Theo mentioned, I'm in the same situation. Centennial Street, Marrickville. It's a very small street. There's about 14 houses in the street, quite elderly, ethnic, residents. So I'm speaking on behalf of them who are unable to, join our meeting. About 14 houses, about 7 have car parks. I'm in the same situation as Theo. I have a disabled son who has services 6 days a week. Disability van picks him up. There's nowhere to park. They can't even park in my driveway. My driveway is always blocked, or I'm using it because there's no parking on the street. They need to double park their van in the middle of the road to pick him up and drop him off, which is quite an issue for them, but I can't do anything about that. What we are finding a massive concern at the moment is when we have the AFL games on in Henson Park. These games start from about 8 a.m, finish about 7 p.m. So they have many, many games in the park during the season, which starts around about February all the way through till about November. Speaking with councillors before, we are proposing on game days, which is usually every Saturday and Sunday, is just to close our street off for residents only. Just to give an example, when the Newtown Jets have their annual Beer and Wine Festival in July, because it's a massive event, they close off the street to residents only, and that's worked out really well for us. We're really happy with that. So we're just proposing during the AFL season, due to the fact that there's many games that are played on those days, and they go on for like good 10 hours, we close off our street just for residents only, because we also have issues with the tennis courts in Henson Park, and there's a Portuguese club as well, so that can get quite busy. I had my driveway blocked 2 weeks ago. I got home, I couldn't get my car in, that was at 3 p.m. I had to go use my friend's driveway a couple of streets away. The lady that parked in my driveway, she got booked. I got the council to come and book her. The ranger, she didn't move her car till 10:30 p.m. that night. So, you know, again, like Thea was saying, you know, we can't even leave our houses on the weekends. We come home, our drivers are blocked, or we're parked in, or I've got 4 cars in my family, you know, I've got 2 boys and a husband. You know, one of us doesn't go out. Like, we have to leave a car at home. I usually don't drive during that period of time because I just know I won't have a parking spot because my husband needs a driveway, so does my son. So we're proposing is the AFL games, we close off the street to residents only, and I think that will be helpful going forward, 2025 season when that starts. So, yeah, that's what we're proposing at this stage.
Thanks very much, Joanna.
Thank you.
The next item is item 21, WestConnex dive site, and the speaker is Emily Lockwood of Summer Hill, who's in person.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak on this motion. Thank you to Councillor Antonio for bringing it forward and highlighting this site. Over 600 people have signed Sydney Yimby's petition asking for 20 stories and at least 30% social housing on this site. We recently tabled this at the Legislative Assembly Essential Worker Housing Inquiry. It's clear that the community expects much better. This site is only a 15-minute walk from RPA, and in our discussions with people over and over, we're hearing it's a massive waste to sell this government-owned land for only 100 homes. The government needs to do something substantial with this site. I recently spent 2 days at the Nurses and Midwives Association conference where we heard from current and former employees of RPA who said it's hard to recruit because of housing, that they're losing staff interstate because of it. We heard, and it is common sense, that they are driving from and to areas that they can afford a really long way, and it can be unsafe given their work and the long shifts. Is this the inner west that you want, where we don't look after the people who look after us? If you say no to a lot more housing on this site, you are showing us that that is a scenario that you want. We would like to see council set a number as part of this motion, even as an ambition. Saying an appropriate number to be determined by the Inner West Planning Department is setting yourselves and us up for disappointment. This is the department that decided the Haberfield defence land should only be huge detached houses because Haberfield was not designated as a housing growth site in the housing strategy. They may well decide that the appropriate number is less than 100 homes. They may decide it should be 1 home with big sprawling gardens. Tell them you want to shoot for 600 homes and they will need to come back with something pretty compelling to build less. And please give them a time limit measured in months rather than years, because we don't want a repeat of the 10-year wait for the Parramatta Road corridor strategy. Vague and endless discussions of more but XYZ and the platitudes have gotten us to where we are today. Voters have said and shown that they want housing action, and we need numbers for that to begin. We need a lot more of different types of housing on this site to help the Inner West thrive. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Emily. The last item is item 29, expanding jazz in the park, and that is Belinda Daly of Lilyfield, who's in person.
Good evening, councillors, and thank you for the opportunity to talk about the expansion of Jazz in the Park. I'm Belinda Daly, the Vice President of Balmain Rozelle Chamber of Commerce. I'm here representing our 160 chamber members. We're one of the largest chambers in Sydney. Last year, we were chosen as a district by the state government program Up Down to promote our 24-hour economy. We have a big interest in attracting a wide audience to our area of Balmain Rozelle. We're here to put Balmain back on the map. And for many years, we have been lobbying Inner West Council to bring more events to Balmain Rozelle. We have significant attributes to our area, over 100 pubs, restaurants and cafes, a harbour location, a beautiful high street that makes it an attractive place for visitors from a far and wide Sydney metro catchment and tourists. And our businesses actually rely on far more than just the local economy to survive. We may be not as cool as Marrickville, but there's no place quite like Balmain, and it deserves to be celebrated. Jazz in the Park, which has been held for many years, is definitely a celebration of our rich cultural history with jazz and live music. However, we have seen a decline in attendance, which has resulted in poor support from our local businesses. They don't see the benefit of the event and they feel that council funds could be better used elsewhere and bring a better return. Attendees often buy their picnic from nearby Woolworths, enjoy the jazz and leave. By nature, it only attracts a narrow audience, does not directly incorporate local businesses. It presents a big opportunity to change it. We wholly support this motion by Councillor Kerry Ferguson to expand the Jazz in the Park or transform the event into a significant, memorable event for Balmain, one that is set on the annual calendars. We see it as an opportunity to be known for a one-of-a-kind festival that locals and visitors know Balmain for, and one that promotes the economy from day to night. If we can bring the community together, involve local businesses and create a showcase event, our local economy will benefit. This may present challenges like road closures, bigger budgets, but it will benefit our economy in the long term. And we can work closely together with community groups, authorities and New South Wales government to deliver this. And the Chamber of Commerce are absolutely willing to partner with council and whatever partners want to be involved to make this a bigger and better event. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Belinda. That concludes the public gallery. You're all more than welcome to stay here for the duration of the meeting, but as I mentioned previously, the proceedings are broadcast contemporaneously online. I can't guarantee you that the order in which the business has been listed on the agenda is necessarily the order that we will deal with it in. Sometimes things get moved around a bit, so we can't promise exactly what time we'll be debating your motion, but you're more than welcome to stay with us to the very end. Hopefully that won't be too far away. Okay, we'll move on to condolence motion from Councillor Tastan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'd like to speak on behalf of the
Please do.
which is Kenneth Gooding was wonderful local resident of Rozelle who passed away recently on 5th of September. Ken spent decades taking care of Henna Reserve in Rozelle. Ken extensive knowledge of ecology turned the park into the beautiful green oasis. Can not only take care of the park, also mentor young people studying horticulture. Made sure streets were not covered by vegetation to ensure people could safely move through the park after dark and collect rubbish from surrounding streets. Ken not only had a positive impact on the park itself at Henna Reserve, but inspired his neighbor to care better for environment when there was his example in their neighborhood. Council note that significant contribution can make to the beauty and upkeep of Henna Reserve Rozelle over the last decade and will plant tree with the park in his memory. On behalf of the Inner West Council and residents, I would like to extend my sincere condolence to Ken's family. The community has lost a wonderful and important person, and he will dearly be missed.
Thank you, Councillor. I'm happy to second your motion. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak to it? If not, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried.
Mayor, could I please move a procedural motion to move a number of items on Globo?
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. I've prepared a list.
Just one moment, if that's okay. I just want to return to the declarations of interest.
Sure.
So there's one that I want to clarify, and I want to go to Councillor Carlisle as well. I've clarified in relation to item 28, notice of motion pedestrian crossing at Allen Street, Leichhardt, that I'm declaring a non-pecuniary, non-significant interest, as I am half owner of a property within a short distance of the crossing, and I will participate in that item. Do you need me to provide that in writing? Thanks. Councillor Carlisle?
Thanks, Mayor. Can I also declare a pecuniary interest in item 11, the update on planning proposals for additional special entertainment precincts? As my son works in a casual capacity for the Factory Theatre, which is within the proposed expanded SEP area, the chances of him benefiting from this very small if he only works around one casual shift a fortnight, but out of an abundance of caution, I'm making this declaration.
Thank you for that. Deputy Mayor, will you move the acceptance of those disclosures?
I will. Seconded
by Councillor Clay. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Over to you.
I've provided a list which is now on our screens of items that I propose to move on Globo.
Okay, I'll go through these one at a time. If you wish to insist upon it being debated, then we'll take that out. Item 3, annual report. Item 6, Ballast Point Park. Item 9, submission to Office of Local Government. Item 14, Leichhardt Oval public access. Item 17, notice of motion. Despointes street flooding. Item 24, more bins, cleaner streets. Item 25, Harnett Avenue, Marrickville. Item 26, Flood Management Advisory Committee. Item 27, ongoing commitment to Aboriginal justice. Item 28, pedestrian crossing at Allen Street, Leichhardt. Item 29, expanding jazz in the park. And item 31, garbage, FOGO and recycling. Okay, so Councillor Howard is moving that they be adopted, seconded by Councillor Atkins. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. So I think that brings us back to item 2.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I would like to move the officer's recommendations.
You wish to speak to it?
Yes, I will. To congratulate staff on their work to deliver on the Council's priorities in the last quarter, as they do with diligence every quarter. We have expanded FOGO to the point of delivering compost for our parks, and I note that we have now saved more than 13,000 tonnes of CO2 from our atmosphere. We have launched the Inner West Pride Centre with 2010, and I'd like to note the significant personal efforts of the Deputy Mayor in delivering on both of those projects. We have opened the first inclusive playground at King George Park in Rozelle, Balmain Town Hall and Library, the Heritage Pub Trail for Balmain and Rozelle, and Power Up Festival at the White Bay Power Station. And I note the significant personal efforts of the Mayor to deliver on those commitments in his ward. It's been a big quarter for Balmain, as they might say at the Balmain Football Club. We have achieved Purple Flag status in Marrickville as a safe and vibrant nighttime destination, and I note the efforts of Councillor Smith and the Deputy Mayor working on the Inner West's own vibrancy reforms, often outrunning the state government and showing them a model, which is something that we should be very proud of. And I do want to again note for councillors that we are seeing in the statements a deficit of $4.6 million against an original proposed deficit of 1.7, something that we will all be voting to adopt tonight. But I also note the advice from the CFO that this is due to a one-off reevaluation of our investment property and some changes to our depreciation schedule. And I note that the CFO and the General Manager continue to advise that surpluses are achievable after this financial year. I commend the progress on the delivery program and the quarterly budget review statement to Council.
Hear, hear. Well said. Is there a seconder for the motion? Seconded by the Deputy Mayor. Do you wish to speak to it?
No, I wait for my right.
Can I ask the minute takers to display the motion on the screen, please? Okay, so that's moved by Councillor Scott, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Brings us to item 4, post-exhibition draft sponsorship policy.
Mayor, I'd like to move the officer's
Deputy Mayor,
recommendations.
do you wish to speak to it?
Just to thank staff for their ongoing work in this space and to thank those who contributed to the public exhibition by making submissions, I move the officer's recommendations.
Thank you for that. Is there a seconder for the motion? Seconded by Councillor Scott. There's no one who wishes to amend it. I'll put that. All those in favour?
Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
I
Councillor
would
Atkins.
like to speak against the motion, please. I have a foreshadowed motion.
Okay.
If it could be displayed.
Yes. Ask the minute takers to display that on the screen, please. Noting that you'll be required to limit your remarks to speaking against the motion that has been tabled, not for the foreshadowed motion.
Indeed. It will be no surprise to anyone that I do not agree with this motion, given what is in the foreshadowed motion. If council is serious about gambling harm minimisation, it's not acceptable to allow sponsorship of council events by organisations or related entities involved in gambling products or services, whether or not they claim to provide a considerable contribution to the community. How do we even define what that is? What sort of contribution and what is considerable? The only comments we received on this policy relate to gambling and gambling harm. We held a round table about gambling harm only in August. We should be focused on reducing gambling harm, not allowing promotion of gambling through sponsorship. I understand that that has a consequence in terms of money, but council supplementing the budget of events is not the only solution to that. We can promote sponsorship opportunities to other organisations. A total of $44,000 as reported in the report to council at its 25th of June meeting over 2 years is not a huge amount to try and replace. I cannot in all conscience vote for a sponsorship policy that allows gambling providers to promote themselves while at the same time chairing a round table and working with community and other organisations to minimise gambling harm. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Atkins. Okay, the way this works is that we are debating the primary motion. If that is defeated, we'll then debate the foreshadowed motion. So is there anyone who wishes to amend the primary motion or to speak against it? If not, I'll go to Councillor Howard for a right of reply.
I would like just to make a right of reply if possible. So I did just want to, note the concerns raised by Councillor Atkins and thank you for raising them. I think we all have a keen interest in protecting our communities from gambling harm. And I note that the council is undertaking targeted actions to support residents that are impacted by gambling harm. It's important to keep that discussion in relation to sponsorship policy in some perspective, though. Council has not participated in any agreement with any direct gambling entities such as TAB or Sportsbet. I've confirmed that with staff. And as we have discussed in previous meetings, any blanket ban on sponsorship agreements with organisations that may have poker machines could capture local community clubs, including those who are working to remove poker machines and reduce their reliance on poker machine revenue. As councillors will know, the council is working to develop a Love Your Club program, which will seek to support clubs and organisations working to transition away from poker machine revenue. And we're receiving a report on this program and other initiatives next month. In an area as complex as this and as personal as this is for many of us, it's important that we take a holistic approach. I do point out Section 5, Clause E, that states in making a decision either to accept or not accept sponsorship, council will weigh up the best interests of the public, public accountability, public perceptions, and the potential risks against any potential benefits. Council's risk management framework provides a mechanism by which risk may be assessed and managed by capturing risk and rating it in a risk register and identifying controls. So the policy contains special checks and balances to ensure that any sponsorship agreements are in the public interest and minimise risk and harm. So I look forward to that December report. I know it's something that Councillor Atkins and I both share an interest in receiving information about, and I look forward to the council continuing to manage sponsorships in the best interest of the community.
Thanks very much, Deputy Mayor. Okay, I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 in support. All those against? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That has been carried. We'll move on to the next
Chair,
item.
I would like to
5.
move item 5 with amendments that have been provided.
Thank you.
Councillor Smith, do you wish to speak to
I
it?
will, thank you. I want to acknowledge and thank all of the community members who've participated in the community engagement process, which has allowed us to consider this amended proposal tonight, including those who made submissions online, attended community meetings, emailed and spoke to ward councillors and staff, and those who spoke in tonight's public forum. I also want to acknowledge that the way this process was initially conducted clearly was not ideal. The initial agreement was reached without a community engagement process, which should not have occurred. And as I said at the time, this was an oversight that understandably increased concern in the community about the proposal, and it should not happen again. Following advocacy, that initial process was halted in order to undertake a thorough and extensive community engagement process, including extending the online submissions portal by an additional month, installing signs in the park advertising the submission process, hand-delivering letters to households within 150 metres of the park, and meetings held on site both at the park and at the Pride Centre. As a result of that process, the proposal tonight has been amended in response to the key concerns, and I am satisfied that the amended proposal seeks to address these appropriately. In response to feedback about noise to neighbouring residences and impact on public space, the size of the outdoor structure is proposed to be reduced with no outdoor seating. A bin will be provided to manage additional rubbish and will be collected at night by Comedor staff. Hours of operation will fall within the hours approved by the LEC, and given Comedor's location on a vibrant street with a number of other restaurants and pubs, I believe that limiting trading hours for the window to 8 p.m. at the latest is appropriate. I appreciate concerns have also been raised about commercialisation or privatisation of public space.
I'll move an extension of time of 2 minutes. Is there a seconder for that? Seconded by Councillor Scott. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Please proceed.
Our public parks are important and valued community facilities, and I understand and share the community's desire to ensure these spaces are prioritised for community use. But let us be clear about what is being proposed. A lightweight outdoor platform taking up less than 1% of the entire park that is available and accessible to all park users, both during and outside hours of trade, and leased by council on a temporary basis. A place where people can enjoy a drink or a snack, sit comfortably while supervising their kids at the playground, or otherwise use as they see fit. This is a very clearly established practice for similar agreements at parks throughout the Inner West, at Yo Park in Ashfield, Badu Park in Annandale, Leichhardt Park, Enmore Park, and my local Petersham Park. I have visited all but one of these establishments, and I can tell you without question that they enhance and diversify the public space and are overwhelmingly supported by the local community. The notion that they would limit or threaten public use is simply untrue. In fact, it's the opposite. There is no reason to think that this proposal will be any different. So to speak briefly to my amendment to points 2 and 3, these resolve that the future of the hires agreement and changes to terms, including the addition of outdoor seating, would be considered as part of the park plan of management that is currently under development. This will ensure that councillors and the community have the opportunity to revisit the agreement through a thorough public exhibition process under the POM. And at that time, the current agreement would have been operational for at least several months, allowing that feedback to be informed by the trial. I appreciate that we cannot satisfy every concern raised, and as a ward councillor entrusted to make decisions in the interests of the community as a whole, it is my view that the amended proposal has great scope to enhance and diversify a small and underutilised section of the park and bring additional vibrancy and offerings to our community. I am satisfied that the community engagement process has been extensive and considered, and I believe what's proposed is worth trialling. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Smith. Councillor Scott will second the motion. Do you wish to speak to it?
No.
Sorry, Councillor Clay, I meant to say. She was getting my attention. Do you wish to speak to it, Councillor Clay?
My only comment is that I've taken the opportunity to actually meet with people, just wandering up to the park, and feedback I'm getting from the young families is that it's the very thing that they do want for the park. They actually go to Petersham Park instead because it offers the opportunity to have coffee or refreshment while they're spending time with their children. And they've specifically asked for this. So that's my comment.
Thanks very much for that. Is there any amendment or anyone who wishes to speak against the primary motion?
Yes, please.
Councillor Atkins?
I have a foreshadowed motion for this one as well. I think the problem here is that we are trying to deal with this as a one-off decision when at the same time we are doing the work to develop an up-to-date plan of management for the park. A park plan of management provides for strategic, holistic planning and will reflect the community's values and views about the park and how it is used. I'm not just hearing from residents living close to the park about their concerns, who may have been provided with information through the DA process as noted, but also from park users across the DA. I too have been out speaking to people in the park and online. People are stopping me in the streets to raise the issue, including people who do support the proposal, because views on this are mixed. The community concerns reflect the feeling that this has been badly managed, both because they feel they found out by accident and because once it was decided that a process of community engagement should occur, that process has not gone smoothly, with people reporting they did not receive the letter that was distributed advising how to have their say and about the public meeting. As noted by one of the speakers today, the Sydney Morning Herald Good Food Guide reported on the 16th of August that the reporter was looking forward to heading straight to Camperdown Memorial Rest Park and one of the 8 outdoor deck chairs at the east side of Comedor, where you'll be able to eat snacky corn-based Mexican things, sink cold brew coffee, and if the licensing gods are kind and giving, you may also bring your own bottle of wine. This was before most residents and park users even knew of the proposal. This has all undermined community confidence in the council, and I am hearing that from them. Many of them are confused about why there seems to be such a hurry to approve this when the longer-term process is underway. And that's why I think the better approach is a strategic, holistic one, which explores fully the community's views about the park and how it is used, and then decides through appropriate processes how that can be done. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Atkins. I'll note that Councillor Atkins has foreshadowed a motion which will be debated if the primary motion is defeated. Is there anyone who wishes to amend the primary motion or to speak against it? If not, I'll go to Councillor Smith for a right of reply.
Thank you. And look, I do appreciate where Councillor Atkins is coming from with the foreshadowed motion. As I've just outlined, though, we have just undertaken an extensive community engagement process over the past few months, and it's one that I'm advised has been far more extensive than would otherwise normally be required for this sort of proposal. And I believe that that is fair enough in response to mistakes that were made initially. But that process has now concluded, responses have been considered, and the proposal has been amended in a way that I feel is appropriate. And I don't see the benefit of delaying or deferring this decision for another 5 or 6 months for the POM process to relitigate it without any additional information or experience. I think there is benefit to be had in informing that next stage of the process with the trial having been underway. And there's plenty of scope, I think, for this to be a really positive experience that enhances the park and could actually help to inform the feedback that we receive as part of the POM. So I would prefer that we agree to commence the trial period now, and that we revisit the terms under the POM as part of that, as I've proposed.
Thanks, Councillor Smith. I'll now put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. All those against? That has been carried 9 votes to 5. The motion has passed. Brings us to item 7, Lewisham Town Centre upgrade. Councillor Smith.
Again, thank you, Mayor. And I would again move this item with amendments that have been provided. And I've already spoken to this master plan when I moved the initial motion, so I won't speak to it again, but suffice to say I've just added a few words after outlines streetscape improvement works to include traffic calming measures and active transport upgrades, because that was both a key part of the initial motion that I moved, and I also know that those 2 items in particular are of key concern to the local community, including the 2 speakers representing Lewisham Better Streets who spoke tonight, particularly around traffic calming, things like lowering the speed limits, improving street pedestrianisation, widening the footpaths, improving the flow and access of traffic, and active transport upgrades as well, including upgrades to bike and cycling infrastructure. So I think it's really important that we specifically include those in the development of the master plan as well, not just streetscape improvement works. And crucially, I think that community engagement should include a public meeting. As again, we've heard tonight, there's a group organising in the community around this particular issue as well. There's a lot of engagement and interest and great ideas, no doubt, from the community as well. And I think a public meeting would really help to inform that process.
Thanks very much, Councillor Smith.
I'd like to second the motion, please.
Of course. Do you wish to speak to it?
Only to add to what Councillor Smith has said, it's really good to see this happening in concert with the Transport for New South Wales upgrades. I've had a lot of contact with the community about this, and I know they're very excited that we're passing this motion tonight.
Okay, thank you for that. There's no further debate. I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Brings us to item 8, Local Traffic Committee meeting of the 21st of October. Are there any clarifications or corrections or amendments to the minutes?
Mr Mayor, I'll move the officer's recommendations.
I'll just go to Councillor Macri for that as chair. Although, were you chair at the time of this meeting? No. Okay, I'll accept it from Councillor Scott, seconded by Councillor Macri. There's no debate. I'll put that. All those.
I'd like to move an amendment.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. You got to move quick around here.
No, I just had to run back in. It was did an Olympic effort there.
Yeah,
It's a slow.
It was
Olympics, I
commented
appreciate
on.
but still.
Let me put it that way.
Yeah. I have an amendment, please, which I've just put up there on the. No, it's coming though, I'm sure. Yes, there it is. So this just relates to the item that's specifically about the electric vehicles, the rollout of electric vehicles. Lots of people in the Marrickville-Midgebury ward and the Stanmore-Darman ward and in the Ashfield-Jarrawanang ward had mentioned and raised with us in the last couple of months that there were not enough EV chargers proposed for our communities. I'm really excited and have obviously worked in the last term on this too to see that we are preparing grants and working on grants and really targeting our communities south of Parramatta Road for the next grant program. One thing that came out of the report in the Local Traffic Committee was that the proposed EV chargers at Tempe Reserve were removed as a result of there not being sufficient power supply at Tempe Reserve. So I am asking that council report back before February 2025 about the feasibility, costs and timeline of any potential works that might upgrade the power at Tempe Reserve to facilitate the installation of electric vehicle chargers at this location.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'm happy to accept Councillor Howard's amendment. And if the minute takers could record that that motion is being moved, Scott Macri, that would be appreciated.
Thank you for that. That's been incorporated into the primary motion. Any further amendments? If not, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried unanimously. That brings us to item 10, bi-monthly report, progress of Inner West Brewers and Distillers.
Mayor, I'd like to move the officer's recommendation with an amendment which I have provided to the note takers. I want to thank the staff for their work in preparing this report and to the Inner West Brewers Association for their ongoing engagement with Council. We had a really successful roundtable last year and I really want to acknowledge and thank the staff, but also all of the independent microbrewers and distillers who came along to that roundtable. We know it's been really tough time for the sector, and I'm proud to be part of a council that is working to bolster and support the many microbrewers and distillers in the Inner West, the vast majority of which, I'm very proud to say, are in the Marrickville-Midgebury ward. The report outlines the progressive actions committed to in the roundtable held with the sector. It's included involving them in highly successful Marrickville Music Festival, meeting with Destination New South Wales around the development of an Inner West tourism strategy, which I'm really excited about, and advocacy to the state and federal governments on excise barriers and other matters. My amendment's a simple one. It's to request some further information, a budget breakdown and a timeline of activities around the Inner West tourism strategy. This really is a game changer. Brewers and distillers are eager for more information about how the strategy will work and how it might bring more people to the Inner West, especially to communities around the new metro station at Sydenham. So one distiller I recently spoke to asked me about how we were proceeding with the strategy and let me know that they're really eager for more information and quote, they said, it'd be good to know what's happening so I can see if I can hold on for that long. That's how dire it is for some of these important businesses. So this work is urgent. I asked staff to please provide some concrete actions at the next meeting so we can provide some greater certainty in turn and assurance in turn to those microbrewers and distillers and also to all businesses across the Inner West that will benefit from the tourism strategy.
Thanks very much, Deputy Mayor. Is there a seconder for the motion? Sorry. Councillor Councillor well, were you asking a question or you were seconding the motion? Okay, sorry. Councillor Macri. Do you wish to speak to it? Any amendment? No. Oh.
My amendment's on there.
Yeah. Any further amendment? I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
if I could please move an amended motion for number 11.
Yep, please proceed.
Thanks. I would like to thank the staff for bringing forward this report. When Enmore Road was designated as a special entertainment precinct, it was crowned as Sydney's coolest street and neighbourhood. And we heard tonight about how cool Marrickville is and how Balmain wants to be. So I'm pleased to support this report that progresses our work for additional special entertainment precincts in Balmain, Dulwich Hill, Leichhardt, Rozelle, and 2 in Marrickville because it's that cool. I move the motion with amendments to explore a partnership with the City of Sydney Council for both sides of King Street, Newtown, to be an additional SEP. Given that the SEP fosters our vibrant culture and supports our creative arts community, I'd also like to see these additional areas brought to life as quickly as possible. Our early consultation saw enthusiastic backing from residents and local businesses, with high approval rates in areas like Dulwich Hill at 90% and Marrickville North at 94%. This support reflects the community's desire for spaces that foster inclusivity and a thriving nighttime economy. So by reviewing the timeframe for the further public engagement period, we can potentially bring it forward and fast track the benefits that these precincts will bring, creating a cool and vibrant inner west. Thank you.
Chair, I would love to second this.
Yes, Councillor
But I won't
Smith.
speak to it other than to say it's time to give South King Street some love. So I'm looking forward to that.
Okay. Is there anyone who wishes to amend the motion or to speak against it? If not, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried unanimously. Item 12, White Bay Power Station Special Entertainment Precinct. I want to move the officer's recommendation, but just with a minor amendment. If I could ask that the recommendation be displayed on the screen. Thank you for that. I want to thank the staff for the ongoing work that they're doing through the Director of Community Services on collaborating with Placemaking for New South Wales to bring the White Bay Power Station to life. Very encouraging to see that there's such a close and ongoing collaboration between the council and that agency and the government, and I think we can all safely say that that's been very effective over the last six to 12 months in bringing in a range of cultural events there. I think it's important we keep the momentum going, and so I wanted to propose that we receive a report to the February Ordinary Council meeting on ongoing opportunities for collaboration between Council and Placemaking New South Wales to contribute to events at the White Bay Power Station. And I'll ask Councillor Ferguson if she's happy to second that motion. That's seconded, and I'll just, in order to display a good example, because I'm often lecturing other people about not writing their motions down, just take a moment to write my amendment out. Unless you've got it by I just put a question to the Director of Community Services. That's clear enough, isn't it, as a direction? All good. Thank you. Okay. Now that's been seconded by Councillor Ferguson. Did you wish to speak to it?
Only to say I think that there's great opportunity here. I'm really excited about the prospect of being able to work more closely with the state government and for the community to have further access to White Bay Power Station. I just think that it's an exciting prospect and it's a great amendment.
Okay, thank you for that. Is there anyone who wishes to speak against the motion or to amend it? If not, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. That brings us to item 13, Pathway to a Safer Cooks River.
Yeah, I'd like to move that.
Yes, Councillor Ferguson, do you wish to speak to it?
No.
Okay, that's withheld. Is there a seconder for the motion? Seconded by Councillor Macri. Do you wish to speak to it?
Sorry.
Councillor Barlow? Okay. Councillor Barlow will second the motion. Do you wish to speak to it?
Amendment.
Okay. Can I, you've provided those to the minute taker. Can I ask that they be displayed on the screen, please? Thank you for that. Councillor Barlow, do you wish to speak to the amendments?
Yes, please. So the key safety issues associated with the Cooks River Walking Trail and its use after dark have now been being discussed by this council since June of this year, after there were 2 attacks on members of our community along this path. And knowing that so many months after these attacks, we have still made no progress to upgrading and appropriately lighting the path more safely for residents does cause me deep concern. As a woman, I find the walk along the Cooks River at night time incredibly intimidating, and frankly, on this issue, at the very least, I count myself lucky that it no longer forms part of my daily commute. There are patches of this pathway that are pitch black and have been pitch black for some years. Luckily, we don't have to rely on my personal anecdotes here, as we can see in this report that yet again, the issues that have been observed by councillors and council officers have now been co-identified by the New South Wales Police. The urgency of fixing these issues should be felt even more clearly now, with the 12-month closure of the T3 line having commenced and more residents than ever being redirected to use this pathway. I also want to note here that local resident Kieran McKenzie's petition to light up the Cooks River, brought first to the attention of this chamber in June by former councillor for Midgebury, Justine Langford, now has over 2,000 signatures from members of our community that want this path to be appropriately lit up. I note the state government's correspondence from today, and I'm heartened by their approach to Gemina, VV Energy and Sydney Water to seek their assistance and cooperation with council in installing more appropriate lighting measures along the Cooks River. I do hope that their facilitation and encouragement of these discussions will be treated with the appropriate urgency, and I look forward to hearing back from the Minister of Transport regarding the outcome of these discussions soon. Our community deserves to feel safe, and I urge the council to accept these amends and not simply pay lip service to the safety of our community, women and children, but to ensure that we have the funding and the direction that we need to take action. Thank you.
Thanks for that. I'll go to the mover of the motion. Are you willing to incorporate those amendments?
Yes, Chair.
They're incorporated. Are there any further amendments to the motion? If not, I'll go to the mover for a right of reply.
No, I'm happy. I'm pleased to see that the response was noted from Joe Halen, our Minister for Transport. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried unanimously. Brings us to item 15, update on creative use of town halls. Deputy Mayor? Look, I tell you, it's a stylish jog. I put it down to the fact that you wore that bloody 10-kilo vest for the last 6 weeks or whatever it was. You're just flying around now. It's like watching a butterfly.
I've been called worse.
Okay, Muhammad Ali, off you go.
What are we up to? 15. Okay. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you as always to the hardworking staff for their work on this project. One of the greatest privileges of serving on the last term of council was seeing the arts and cultural sectors engage with council now town halls and really take centre space in the work that we were doing. This report reveals what we knew anecdotally, which is that the creative not-for-profit sector is taking up the offer from council and are using our town halls for rehearsal, exhibition and presentation, far more than I think any of us could have imagined would be the case. Between July 2023 and September 2024, there was a total of 2,780 creative uses of our 7 town halls and other venues, with a sharp uptick following the formal announcement of the initiative in July this year. We know the value this brings. 1 in 10 inner Westies work in the creative industries, and supporting our creative industries injects economic activity in the local community and makes our community more vibrant and more exciting place to live. The work to install audiovisual and other equipment in our town halls is proceeding well, meaning that we're offering a genuine plug and play opportunity for local organisations, musicians, companies, performers and artists. And there's been further progress on the work to convert Marrickville Town Hall into a live music venue and a hub for multicultural performance. So my amendment is to receive a specific report about that work. I think it's really important that we really understand how progress is going with that particular project. We did an extraordinary amount of work in the last term to work towards converting Marrickville Town Hall into a live music venue and a hub for multicultural performance. We brought together community experts in a steering committee. We met many times, we engaged with artists. It was really important work. And that work actually spread across all of the town halls, which really is a great legacy of the work that we did. Look, with the state government advancing significant vibrancy reforms and Marrickville Road proposed as a new special entertainment precinct, it's imperative that we get cracking and deliver this important project, providing an anchor for venues and the vibrant precinct that will be Marrickville Road.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. Is there a seconder for the motion? Seconded by Councillor Barlow. Do you wish to speak to it? That's waived. Is there anyone who wishes to oppose the motion or to amend it? If not, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried unanimously. Item 16, dual naming of local parks.
Chair, I'd like to move that the report be received and noted.
Councillor Carlisle, thank you. Do you wish to speak to that?
Just quickly, in doing so, I'd just like to acknowledge the work and input of the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Advisory Group in considering the dual naming of the parks, and also the work of council staff working with them in this regard.
Okay, thank you for that. Is there a seconder for the motion? Seconded by Councillor Barlow. Do you wish to speak to it?
I have amends also for this item.
Okay, thank you. So, but you're willing to second the motion, or? Okay, thank you. Okay, do you wish to speak to that?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
I also just want to commend the work of the council staff and the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Advisory Committee on their work on this consultation. We're particularly lucky to have community members that are so willing to volunteer their experience and expertise to support our decision making in this field. Renaming our new inclusive playgrounds presents council with a wonderful opportunity to support young people interacting more with Aboriginal culture and language, and help them to develop a connection to country through their physical play spaces in local parks. Developing in our children cultural connections and appreciation is a really tangible way that we can take steps towards truth, treaty and justice in our local area. I think council should support the suggestions from the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Advisory Committee and ensure that we commence work on these opportunities as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Is that incorporated, Councillor Carlisle?
Yes, happy to incorporate.
Incorporated into the primary motion. Any further amendment? If not, I'll go to the mover for a right of reply. That's waived. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. That brings us to item 18. Anti-Discrimination Act of 1977. Have I got that right?
You do.
Now, I'll just check. It's 8 o'clock, but we're making pretty good time.
No. Stop. You're jinxing us.
No, I'm saying, do people want to go and get a cup of tea and have a toilet break, or do you want to crack on? Just straw poll. Keep going?
Yeah.
All right. Councillor Atkins.
New South Wales Parliament recently passed the Equality Bill, which contains provisions which make a notable difference to the lives of LGBTQIA+ people in New South Wales, including bringing New South Wales into line with the rest of the country on government identity documents, legislating non-binary as a legal sex descriptor, better recognition of queer families, particularly for parents and children born through overseas commercial surrogacy, extending legal protections for trans people, intersex people, people living with HIV or AIDS, and for sex workers. Everyone involved in getting this legislation done, be they politicians, staffers, the community, is to be congratulated. It's been a long, hard haul for all of us. But there were further reforms included in the original Equality Bill which were not passed, particularly those relating to the Anti-Discrimination Act 1977 and the protection of students, teachers and sex workers. I know people on all sides of politics have also been working on these issues for many years, and it's time we got them done. Council prides itself on being progressive and inclusive, and we should make it clear that these issues need to be addressed in a timely manner and not dragged out as we know law reform commission processes can be. Thank you.
Thanks very much for that. Is there a seconder for the motion? Seconded by Councillor Barlow. Do you wish to speak to it?
I went right.
That's waived. Is there anyone who wishes to amend the motion or to speak against it?
I have a
Councillor
foreshadowed
Howard,
motion.
Deputy Mayor.
I have a foreshadowed motion, so I will not speak to this. I will speak to the foreshadowed motion.
Okay. but you're registering your opposition to the motion.
I'm registering my commentary about it.
Okay, thank you. It's a very detailed foreshadowed motion. Okay, we won't debate that now. We'll return to the primary motion. I'll ask that it's displayed on the screen. Is there anyone who wishes to amend that motion? If not, I'll go to Councillor Atkins for a right of reply.
No, I waive that.
That's waived. I'll put that motion. All those in favour? That's 5 in favour. All those against? That's 8 against. That has been defeated, which means that we'll now consider the foreshadowed motion. I'll ask that it's displayed on the screen.
Thank you. So I thank Councillor Atkins for their motion and for raising this issue. I know how passionately they hold their views around this and how much they have worked to progress rights for LGBTQIA plus people in our community. Look, in October, the New South Wales Parliament saw the greatest number of simultaneous LGBTIQA plus reforms ever, with the passing of the Equality Legislation Amendment LGBTIQA plus bill. This was historic, and it will make a significant and real difference for local people here in the Inner West. I think Councillor Atkins explained really well what those benefits were in some of the reforms. I just wanted to add that these reforms will make no difference whatsoever to the vast majority of people, but for those who it will impact, they're truly life-changing. I note that Council has advocated strongly on several of these reforms, particularly the urgent need to remove the requirement for trans and gender diverse people to undergo surgery in order to change the gender marker on their birth certificate. It was an absurd rule, it was a cruel rule, and I'm so pleased that we have finally amended that in legislation. But of course, there's still much more to do. It's been a long-standing Labor Party policy to undertake a root and branch review of the Anti-Discrimination Act. It will be the first time in 47 years that this act is being reviewed, and we can be proud that the New South Wales Labor government is undertaking that review, and we're proud that the Rand government instituted it, one of the first leading pieces of anti-discrimination law in the world. The review provides an important opportunity to address imbalances in our anti-discrimination framework, including discrimination against LGBTIQA plus teachers and students. Similarly, there are reviews underway into the Surrogacy Act 2010 and the Summary Offences Act, where deficiencies in protections for children born through compensated surrogacy and legal protections for sex workers can be further progressed. So those items that did not pass with the bill. Especially with respect to the Anti-Discrimination Act, it's critical that we don't preempt those discussions.
Chair, I would like to move an extension of 2 minutes.
It's moved by Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Carlisle. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Please proceed.
Thanks. It's critical that we don't preempt those discussions, and that is why I move this foreshadowed motion. People have a right to participate in the process and to be heard, and Rainbow Labor for One will continue to work with LGBTIQA plus organisations and politicians and people all across the political spectrum to end discrimination against LGBTIQA plus people in New South Wales. I want to call out and congratulate the member for Sydney and the New South Wales Labor government for passing the Equality Bill. We have more work to do, and I'm so proud that there are pathways in place to achieve more meaningful reform. Thank you.
Thanks very much for that, Deputy Mayor. Is there a seconder for the foreshadowed motion? Seconded by Councillor D'Arienzo. Do you wish to speak to it?
Just to congratulate my colleague and Deputy Mayor Matt Howard for that fantastic speech. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor D'Arienzo. Is there anyone who wishes to amend the motion or to oppose it? If not, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. That's been carried 8 votes to 5. Item 19, Notice of Motion, ECEC Pay and Conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There is no question that we need our early childhood education and care workers to be properly paid, and we should welcome the inclusion of local government workers in the newly announced federal funding via grants. The local government state award is currently ineligible as a workplace instrument under the guidelines identified by the federal government for the grants. Local Government New South Wales and the United Services Union have been working closely to ensure that the 300 New South Wales local government providers can promptly access the grant funding via development of a splinter award that will meet the grant guidelines. A working group made up of member council representatives has also been formed to provide feedback on the newly developed Splinter Award, and I understand that the USU is consulting its members on that Splinter Award this evening. I think it's really important for council to support applying for the newly announced federal funding so that our educators can have a pay rise as soon as possible, and to support the Splinter Award and the provisions that it makes on conditions for early childhood workers.
Thanks very much for that, Councillor Atkins. Is there a seconder for the motion? Councillor Antonou, do you wish to speak to it?
I waive my right to speak.
That's waived. Is there anyone who wishes to speak against the motion or to amend it?
Mayor, can I move an amendment, please?
Councillor Carlisle?
So I think there is a copy of the amendment. So just amending number 2 in the motion in light of what Liz has just said, just to make it a bit more current. So just stating that council notes the collaborative work underway between the United Services Union and Local Government New South Wales to develop a Splinter Award, oh there it is, to ensure that local government providers can meet the guidelines to access the grant funding, and that council requests a progress brief from Local Government New South Wales on the development of the Splinter Award.
Councillor Atkins, how do you feel about incorporating that into the primary motion?
Yep, that's fine.
Incorporated. Are there any further amendments to the primary motion? If not, I'll go to the mover for a right of reply.
I waive that.
I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. We're up to Councillor Macri's motion. He's back. Parking traffic plan for Henson Park events. Councillor Macri?
Yes, Chair, thanks for that. I think the speakers sort of outlined what the issues are. I just want to amend the motion myself just to delete recommendation 2 where it says no parking signs on weekends. I think the extra work they're doing around the train station is causing a knock-on effect and causing the problems during the weekdays now where people are desperate to find parking near Sydenham Station as well, and they're parking in the back lanes and causing grief, as the speaker sent me photos of what was going on during the week now as well. So it's not just peculiar to the actual game days. So that's just item 2, just change recommendation to remove on weekends, just no parking signs. There's a lot of opportunity down there to actually get some good outcomes, a benefit to the actual 2 schools. And I've mentioned Marrickville High, but also Marrickville Public as well has the ability to accept cars. And I know the Newtown Jets actually engage the Marrickville Public as well. And there's opportunities to actually see if the Swans can get to their supporters and their members that are coming to maybe even organise shuttle buses from Sydenham Station. All those things can be actually sorted out and discussed when we have discussions with the Swans and actually the schools. So everything's on the table to try and make things a little bit better down there because the parking situation is becoming unbearable. That's all I'll say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Can I be second and amend as well, please?
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. And thank you, Councillor Macri, for bringing this motion forward. You know, it's been so exciting to have the AFLW playing games at Henson Park and to see thousands of fans come to support these exceptional women athletes. Councillor Macri is correct to note that there have been additional parking and other pressures on surrounding streets. And I've been working very closely with staff and residents on Centennial Street for some time. I think we all have, trying to find a solution to these problems. You know, I support the suggestions being made here. Look, I'm just adding an amendment which is really designed to complement these initiatives, and I have spoken to Councillor Macri about this, and he has indicated in his comments then that he's amenable to it, which I appreciate, which is for Council to investigate partnerships with Transport for New South Wales and AFL New South Wales ACT to provide and extend shuttle buses from Sydenham Station and also to Stanmore Station to ensure that we're assisting people to get to the game who've accessed public transport. And look, I think it's critically important that as we look at these challenges, we have to do so in a multifaceted way. Reducing parking pressure isn't just about creating more space for vehicles. It's about promoting public transport, it's about promoting active transport. We know the evidence is in that the more people we can encourage to use public transport and active transport, we are going to reduce that pressure significantly. And council has a responsibility and the opportunity, a great opportunity to really be a partner with other levels of government and other organisations like the AFL to really turbocharge how people are travelling to these games. So I thank Councillor Macri, and I look forward to working with him and Councillor Barlow also to ensure more people can conveniently access these games at Henson Park.
Thanks for that, Deputy Mayor. Are those amendments incorporated, Councillor? Okay. Any further amendments to the primary motion? Councillor Barlow?
I have additional amends that I've provided to council staff. I may just need to delete my second part because it's already been covered by Councillor Howard's amends.
I'll ask the minute takers to do so.
But I will speak to the additional pieces. I think most of it has already been covered off by Councillor Howard. I just want to note that that I think for a lot of people, the public transport options that we have to Henson Park are just not particularly accessible, and they likely play a major part in the over-reliance of spectators on driving to games. I think a shuttle option is part of the way in making that a more accessible option for a lot of people, but I would be really keen to see Transport for New South Wales take a look at the existing routes and the bus connectivity specifically to look at ways that we can encourage patrons to travel by public transport. Another way that we can help to reduce the traffic and parking requirement on game days is, of course, reviewing our existing infrastructure for people to choose active transport options, looking at safer routes, looking at infrastructure on the ground to ensure that people can leave bikes and other things safely will help spectators choose other options to get to and from games, and in turn reduce the parking required in the park and surrounding streets. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Macri, are you happy to incorporate those?
Yes, Chair, I am.
They're incorporated into the primary motion. Any further amendments? If not, I'll go to the mover for a right of reply.
Thanks, Chair. I'll just say briefly thank you to Councillor Barlow and Councillor Howard for improving the motion, and I think it's a great thing when we can all work together in the ward and, you know, many eyes on a problem deliver great outcomes. Thank you to them both.
Okay, thank you for that. I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried unanimously. Item 21, WestConnex dive site.
Thank you, Chair. I want to start by saying I want to firmly put forward that it is the job of government to build public homes, and the attempt to sidestep that responsibility by handing public assets to private markets should be called out. We do need to see 100% public housing on public land, and all levels of government need to stop bending to the whims of developers and feasibility bluffs when they feel their giant windfall profits are threatened. To privatise even partly any sense of government land is seen as a failure in my eyes. In June 2022, Council resolved to advocate to the state government that the Transport for New South Wales owned WestConnex dive site in Annandale be retained in public ownership. Council underwent significant work in the planning of a biotech hub at the site to contribute to the economic outputs of the Camperdown Health and Education Innovation Precinct. Both of these outcomes were submitted to and laid out in the residual land management plan, and I want to thank staff for their consistent work on this. State government has since proposed this well-located site to be sold to private development. The proposed development is slated to deliver 100 dwellings, way below what could be delivered on a 12,000 square metre parcel of land, which has been called a huge waste by advocacy groups from which we heard from tonight. We have an opportunity to build more well-located public housing as a state. Council has an incredibly important role and duty to advocate in these areas. I want to also commend Labor colleagues who themselves have talked about wanting to see 1,000 public homes in the LGA built. I would love us to see more. And the residents want us to be pushing back against bad and insufficient policy from state government. Our advocacy is crucial here. Currently, there are 57,904 households on the social housing wait list, the longest in the country, with the wait time in the inner west being 10 plus years, according to New South Wales Department of Communities and Justice. I'd like to move an extension of time.
Moved by Councillor Atkins. How long would you like to move?
2 minutes.
2 minutes, seconded by Councillor Blake. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Please proceed.
The need to clear the waitlist should be a top priority to ensure equity within the inner west. The Inner West local government area contains key parcels of both council and state-owned land that are prime locations for the state government to invest and build public housing, and council has previously resolved to advocate to the state government to collaborate on the delivery of public housing. So to reaffirm this commitment, I've put forward this NOM. And if housing in the Inner West is to be equitable and affordable, the inclusion of public housing is crucial to the diversification of housing stock.
Okay, thank you for that. Is there a seconder for the motion? Seconded by Councillor Blake. Do you wish to speak to it? I'll waive. That's waived. Is there anyone who wishes to amend the motion or to speak against it?
Mr Mayor, I have a foreshadowed motion that's been provided to the minute takers earlier.
Okay, thank you for that. I'll ask the minute takers to display that, but I'll note that you're required to speak against the primary motion rather than speaking to the foreshadowed motion.
I'm very happy to speak briefly against the primary motion. I agree with Councillor Antonou that we should support a lot of public housing on that site in Camperdown, which is proudly in the Leichhardt ward. Unfortunately, simply being disappointed is not a strategy for achieving that. I'm happy to speak to the substantive nature of my foreshadowed motion when we get to that.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Is there any amendment to the primary motion? If not, I'll go to Councillor Antonou for a right of reply. Councillor Macri.
Chair, I'm sort of a bit challenged by this motion in the way that I think the settlement is going the right way, but I don't want to see 1.2 hectares of just social and affordable housing. It's got to be a mix. And that's the important thing that's missing, because we don't want to create just a bland place. We want good outcomes, good design, and height unlocks that. I think they should be doing more with this, and that's where the problem is. So I'm struggling to support the motion on those grounds, but I do agree with the sentiment that the government should be not just handing the land over. I think they should be partnering in this and developing strategies, partnering with the private sector to deliver social, affordable, and normal housing for normal people that can afford to pay. That's the only way we can make projects sustainable. So those are my only comments on this. I think it's important that they do acknowledge that.
Thanks, Councillor Macri. I'll now put the... I'll go to Councillor Antonou for a right of reply.
Thank you. And I thank Councillor Scott for speaking to the motion, but also to Councillor Macri. I do want to challenge the idea that public housing is bland. It is an important cornerstone of social infrastructure. We are not building public housing to the levels that we need. As I said, there's over 59,000 households on the waiting list, and there is roughly 6,000 people on the priority list for the inner city. People want to live in the inner city and deserve the right to, whether or not they are of high socioeconomic status or not. The core of this motion is to advocate for public housing on public land, and I want to reiterate that this motion is for advocacy. We can't actually make a decision on what goes on that land in this meeting, but we should be advocating for the best possible outcome for our most vulnerable current and future residents, not tethering ourselves to a deficit mindset dictated to us by private interests.
Thanks very much for that. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. It's 5 votes in favour. All those against? That's 9 votes against. That has been defeated. We'll move on to the foreshadowed motion from Councillor Scott. I'll ask that it's displayed on the screen. Councillor Scott.
Thank you. I will take the opportunity to speak to this motion now. And as I said, I agree with Councillor Antonou that we should support a lot of public housing on that site in Camperdown in the Leichhardt ward and in our LGA overall. The announcement by the ministers that this would only be 100 units of housing on this former WestConnex site with no public housing is out of line with what our community expects. The Labor councillors on the Inner West Council have given their full support to building a lot of public housing in our community from the start of the last term. This has included offering 10 of our own council car parks to the state government for them to deliver social, public and affordable housing. It has included establishing a faith housing roundtable and a partnership with the Faith Housing Alliance to help them consolidate their land holdings and build more social housing on their own properties. We have continued to support a substantial increase in the amount of public housing in the Inner West, publicly committing to setting a target for the state government that they help us deliver 100 units of public housing. 1,000. Thank you so much, Councillor Smith. That was my error. That particular site on Parramatta Road in Camperdown, the truth is it is undercooked for housing overall. I agree with Councillor Anthony that we could deliver 100 units of entirely public housing on that site, but that 100 units could be 1/3 or 1/2 of a development that realises the true potential of that site, or 200 units could be 1/3 or 1/2 of that site. A site on Parramatta Road is the ultimate example of if not there, then where. Given its proximity to the city, given its proximity to RPA, given its proximity to transport links, it is the ideal place to make use of significant height and density increases. And this council should write to the ministers responsible and ask them to upgrade their ambition when it comes to potential housing on that site, so that we can deliver a lot of public housing that is a substantial percentage of a much greater number of dwellings on that site.
Thanks very much for that. Is there a seconder for Councillor Scott's motion? Seconded by Councillor Smith. Do you wish to speak to it? That's waived. Is there anyone who wishes to amend the motion or to speak against it?
I do wish to speak to this
Councillor
briefly. I
Anthony?
do also want to clear up a misrepresentation. I did not imply that 100 units should be the what should be on the site. In point 3 of my original motion, I do speak to increasing housing generally on the site. But I do also want to put forward a request if this could be voted on in seriatim.
I'll put that to the mover.
No.
Okay, that's not agreed to. Do you wish to speak to the motion?
No.
Okay, that's waived. Is there anyone who wishes to amend the motion or to speak against it? If not, I'll go to Councillor Scott for a right of reply.
Waived.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour? That's 9 votes in favour. All those against? That's 5 votes against. The motion has been carried. That brings us to item 22, notice of motion making use of Leichhardt Oval for live music and performance. Now, I was happy to move this on block, so someone must have an amendment. Who was it who wanted to? Councillor Blake? Can I ask you to turn your microphone on? Thank you.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I have slight amendment to section 3, which were provided to the minute taker.
Yep.
Just to delete the words consider and to in the last sentence so that consultation will actually take place.
Sure. No, that was the intention, but just that I was, by saying consider, I was meaning that there should be a report come back to council rather than automatically conducting community consultation. But I'm happy to incorporate that, delete the word.
I'm happy to second that motion too.
Okay, but it probably needs to say that following receipt of expressions of interest, consultation with the community will take place. That makes sense, just to make it
sure. Yep.
Grammatically correct. I know you're happy to second it, but I did draft it with Councillor Ferguson, so I'm going to ask if she's willing to second it. She had indicated to me previously to your amendment that that's what she was interested in. So we've got a seconder from Councillor Ferguson. I'll waive my right to speak to it. Thank you, Councillor Blake, for the amendment. Is there any further amendment? Councillor Macri?
I think I've read there in your preface there that you were going to do a trial of some entertainment. And you were going to trial some local talent. Does that include ACDC? I believe they were local to the area. Is that one of the ones we were going to have? Because I might want to pre-book for that.
Well, Ian Moss lives in Annandale, so I think if we put this out to the music sector, that we'll get some interesting proposals and that they can be reported back here. Okay, if there's no further discussion, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried unanimously. Item 23, Sydney Gay and Lesbian Mardi Gras.
Thank you, Mayor. Mardi Gras season is upon us, and this motion is all about ensuring that more of Mardi Gras comes to the inner west. We have one of the largest populations of LGBTQIA+ people in Australia, and we'd like to see more activities and more programs in our local communities. I'm very excited that Inner West Council will be holding a stall at the 2025 Mardi Gras Fair Day. The motion asks for a small amount of budget be apportioned from existing budgets for staff to offer information and giveaways and that sort of thing. If you've ever been to Fair Day, that's really where you get to have very good engagements with people, and people like to take things away. It also reiterates our offer to host Fair Day at a park in the Inner West in future years, and looks to expand funding for the Feel the Love program, which is one of the most amazing, I think, festivals that we host in the calendar, and I really acknowledge the Director of Communities and her team for the extraordinary work that they do to make that work. So thank you so much. Importantly, I just wanted to pull out one thing from the motion, which is that it's calling that for us to erect a permanent plaque at the Inner West Pride Centre to commemorate the just exceptional work of community advocates and activists who work to deliver the initiative to be unveiled as part of the Feel the Love program. There were so many people that were involved in creating the Inner West Pride Centre over many, many years, over many terms of council. These were people that came to be members of reference groups who really did heavy lifting when there wasn't always support for the Pride Centre. And I just really wanted to acknowledge them. At the opening, you would have seen when you came in, there was a poster put up which had all of their names on it, and the just level of interest and engagement people have with that. Obviously, people were surprised and really touched to see their names there and to see them acknowledged and celebrated and their contributions celebrated. But also lots of other people just really asking how they could get involved as on the back of seeing that. So I've spoken to 2010. Who are in principle amenable to this. So I'd like to us to proceed to really create a plaque to really acknowledge the community activism which led to the Inner West Pride Centre. So I ask councillors for their support.
Thanks for that. Is there a seconder for the motion? Seconded by Councillor D'Arienzo. Do you wish to speak to it? That's waived. Is there any amendments?
Yep.
Councillor Atkins?
I've provided my amendments. I'll just speak briefly. I do not oppose this motion, but I do wonder whether in the current climate of increasing opposition to inclusiveness, we should be rethinking our characterisation of our Mardi Gras events as being all about love. Over a number of years now, Sydney Gay and Lesbian Mardi Gras has become depoliticised, and we're reaping the consequences. I think we can all look fondly back to the days when there were not so many huge corporate floats, which are now given much bigger numbers for participants compared to community floats. And while inclusion at work and by businesses is super important, I think we've lost something from the character of Mardi Gras as a result. During World Pride, we held a Pride Inner West Festival, and in terms of contributing to inclusivity and visibility, not just in the form of a party, I think we should consider holding such a festival on a yearly basis in Pride Month, June, each year to distinguish it from Mardi Gras. I would like to see us commit extra funding to also contributing to community floats for Mardi Gras. To encourage and facilitate local groups to apply to Mardi Gras, we could have a special small grants program. That's the basis on which I am proposing these amendments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Deputy Mayor, do you wish to incorporate that into the primary motion?
In just looking at this, if I could ask Councillor Atkins, would you just consider a small amendment to this? So where it says, consider increasing funding for Feel the Love celebration and then comma, providing small grants, could I just for sake of clarity ask that be a Feel the Love celebration and providing small grants? I don't want it to be one or the other. I'd like us to look at increasing Feel the Love and...
That's the intention.
Okay.
So fine.
If we could just add that word and, I incorporate the amendment.
Okay, thank you for that. That's incorporated. Is there any further amendment to the motion? If not, I'll go to the Deputy Mayor for a right of reply.
I waive my right.
I'll put that motion. All those in favour, against, declare that carried unanimously. Okay, we're up to the reports in confidential session. So I'll ask for a motion to go into confidential session, moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor D'Arienzo. All those in favour, against, declare that carried. I'll ask the council officers to inform us when the broadcast has been discontinued and the room has been cleared. Thank you. The broadcast has recommenced. We've concluded the business in the confidential session. I will declare the meeting closed. Thanks very much, everybody.